All right, welcome to Tucked Into the Wizard's Bed podcast. This is episode 2. I'm Aidan. I'm here with Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Aidan. Today, we got a lot of things. DC sports are at rock bottom across all four major sports. We got a coaching battle, Wes Unseld versus Brian Keefe. Talk about some of the centers, the Wizards' 3-game win streak, and then their 2-game losing streak. And the Wizards are staying in DC. So we'll also talk about some current events like Jonte Porter, when teams should blow it up, and we'll do a little sneak peek to the offseason and the playoffs.
All right, so I'm going to start things off, Ben. I've got a little bit of a thought experiment for you.
Sounds good. Oh, I completely forgot to come up with the trivia, but
That's
that's
fine.
okay.
We'll do it next week. So do you think, we've had this conversation a lot personally, but I want to go ahead and put it out on the podcast. Do you think that the Wizards are going to be able to make the playoffs through the play-in, however, by 2030? Do you think that's a realistic goal?
By 2030, absolutely.
Okay.
That is definitely enough time. Even when did the Pistons blow it up the first time with Blake Griffin? What was that? 2018.
Yeah, 2018,
So
19.
it's been about 6 years. As long as we don't do that, we should be in an okay spot. I mean, you see teams like the Magic; they spent like 3 years rebuilding. The Rockets look dead in the water; they're now on the verge of a
Yeah.
play-in spot. So
Yeah.
by 2030, I mean, the team's gonna look completely different. They should be fighting for a playoff spot. If they're not, something really went wrong,
Yeah.
or they had like a really short, what's it called? A really short like peak.
Yes.
So
I mean, I was trying to be realistic with 2030. It is the Wizards. I'm not anticipating an OKC type rebuild coming up for us, or even Houston, who kickstarted it with trading James Harden. Um, but so do you think if we're hanging around the 11, 12 seed and looking like we can compete, but not like we're ready for the playoffs yet, would you deem that a failure,
by
given 6 years of the
2030,
rebuild? Yes.
it depends on what the players are.
Okay.
Like I know with Dawkins and Winger, they've been looking towards these really young, really athletic, kind of raw prospects. You saw that with Bilal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Vukcevic in this last draft, and we'll probably see that again at this upcoming draft. I wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
surprised if they take like Sar
Yeah.
or someone like that, someone raw and young.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
I mean, by 2030, I mean, I would hope at that point they're at least in the top like six. I mean, that's
mm-hmm.
6 years from now. If you
Yeah.
can't build a team in 6 years, but you never know. I'm hoping for maybe by 2027 they're in that 11, 12, 10 spot, and they
Yeah.
can just build from there.
Yeah, I'm personally hoping for a play-in appearance by 2027, 2028, like you were saying. And my hope is that realistically 2030 is when we can be contending for a playoff spot. That's why I put that date down. To me, that just seems like the most realistic avenue, given starting our rebuild kind of poorly with the Beal trade and everything. We did what we could, but rather than doing it 2 or 3 years ago, we did it after Beal lost a lot of his value.
Yeah, I don't even think they started that poorly. Like at least they are at the bottom. They
Yeah.
have Bilal Koulibaly. They have Denny, who's looking really good. So it's just
Hmm.
like again though, nobody is safe on this team. Obviously, we'll talk about the offseason a little bit later. Nobody is
Yeah.
safe except probably
Yeah.
Bilal, but
No, I would say definitely Bilal right now, and probably
yeah,
Denny. I would say, given
I
that we
don't know
just
if
extended
someone
him.
gives a good price for Denny, they're gonna pull the trigger. But
The thing with me is that he's shown like he's erupted these past few games, but I don't think he's reached that ceiling, his ceiling yet. So
I
I
don't think he
think
has either.
Winger
I
and
still think he has
Dawkins,
another step.
yeah, and I think Winger and Dawkins are going to be more patient than not with these things. You saw at this trade deadline, we didn't really make a whole lot of trades. Just the Gafford one is too good to give up, and Gafford completely doesn't fit our timeline. Where Denny might be able to contribute when we're really looking to compete. So
Yeah,
I,
he'd be
I
a
don't
good vet.
s- I don't see him getting traded right now, but I definitely think that it's not beyond the realm of the possibility. Like if we get a really good offer, we cannot turn pass up. We're definitely going to trade him.
Yeah,
It's
if you get multiple first round picks, or even
yeah,
honestly a good first round pick for Denny, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets moved.
no,
Um,
me neither.
but it depends on what Dawkins and Winger actually see. If they actually think he could turn into like a number one, number two option,
Hmm.
then he's gonna stay. I mean, we've seen flashes of it a little bit, like the 44-point game against New Orleans,
Hmm.
and he had a really good game in one of the wins this week. I don't remember who it was against, but I remember Denny had a really good game.
Yeah, I mean the big thing for me about Denny is that he's always going to defend at a high level. If his shot's not falling, now he's taking it to the rim and really like being aggressive, which like we talked about last episode, that's a improvement I really wanted to see from him.
Yeah, oh man, those
And
first seasons were rough.
it was so rough. And it's tough to find a player like that that has as good of ball handling and distribution as Denny has. So I could definitely see
At
him
his
being a good
size
number
too.
two option, exactly at his size and the type of defender he is. To me, he can fill like not quite the same shooting, but defense and a little bit of playmaking role that like maybe even better playmaking than Clammy Thompson was to Steph Curry. I don't really see him as number one, but I could definitely see him as an elite number two option.
Yeah, I mean his improvement to his 3-point shot. I mean he's up like
Mm-hmm.
9% or something this year.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously he's a lot stronger than guys now, so if he bulks up a little bit more, what's he averaging right now? I should have probably looked this up beforehand.
Yeah, let me check. I think he's averaging
But
like 18 or something over the year.
14.
14.
14,
Ooh.
which is really good, but he
It is
could
good.
he could bump that up to like 16 maybe next year.
I want to
Will
say
he
he's been
ever be a 20
averaging.
point scorer? Probably not, but
No.
he can contribute in a lot of other ways.
I want to say he's been averaging 18 since like the All Star break, which is at this point a large enough sample size that
You could look
it's
that up. I don't
significantly
know
more.
even how to find that.
Yeah, I can take a look.
And while you do that, I will talk about DC sports as a whole. Now I know
Mhm,
we're mainly going to be Wizards focused, but and I know you're not super into a lot of other sports, but DC sports
mhm,
right now is at complete rock bottom. And your question about 2030 is interesting because
mhm,
DC sports right now has this potential where every single team can be good at the exact same time, which
mhm,
is something we haven't really had in DC. The closest was like,
mhm.
well, the closest was definitely 2017, but obviously the Commanders are never good,
No.
so it kind of breaks that apart. But we have the Wizards going through their rebuild. The Nationals are just starting their rebuild. The Commanders, obviously, they just got a new owner, so we'll see how they do. Upcoming, obviously, second worst record in the league last year. And then we're not going to talk. I'm not a huge hockey fan, but the Caps are in kind of where the Wizards were last year. Um,
Yeah, but I'll give the Caps the benefit of the doubt, given that they want a chip and they also have a guy who's about to pass Wayne
yeah,
Gretzky for
they
all
have the
time
guy
goal
who's like the
scorer.
best goal
So
scorer of all time.
yeah, I'm cool with
So
keeping him for the rest of his career and then tanking. That's fine.
yeah,
And
so
it's true.
it's
I
just an
don't
interesting
follow.
time.
Yeah, it is for sure. I don't follow a whole lot of other DC sports, but I see a lot of Commanders news just like on my Twitter page. I see a lot of national news with the MLB season starting. That is not all good.
They got killed like
Yeah, they
seven to
got
one or
destroyed.
something opening day.
Um, but it is seeming like we're on an upward trend for a lot of these sports. Especially to me, the Commanders and the Wizards, like you
Oh,
said,
the
new
Commanders is
ownership
huge.
that
And I'm
really know
mainly a
what they're
Ravens
doing.
fan, but
Hmm.
I've obviously been following the Commanders a lot recently.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
Adam Peters is, I mean, he's just a million times better than Dan Schneider. So
it's
it's
not even
like
close. You can't even compare it. Um,
he hasn't committed any heinous crimes yet, so he's already better.
yeah, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners come from the DC area, so I'm sure a lot of them know. Like, DC has not really been super into the Commanders really in a long time. I know
Because they've been
because
so bad.
they've been so bad. It's same thing with the Wizards. But from my experience growing up well around DC, is people tend to be more of a Ravens fan because it's like they're right there. They're more fun to watch. The Dan Snyder thing really pushed people away
Yeah,
from the
I've
Commanders.
seen mix actually, which was
But
really
now,
cool.
yeah, I find a lot of older people are Commanders fans just because of the history and like like if the Wizards won a championship, I'd never be a fan of a team even if they were in Baltimore or whatever. Um, but I think a lot of it is now that the Commanders are starting to be good. I'm starting to see a lot more people that live in DC that are starting to be like, oh, I can finally root for the Commanders again. And I guess it's not just them being good, but more just no Dan
It's the
Snyder.
Dan Schneider thing.
Yeah, like
It's something with
they know.
people named Dan Schneider. And it's just it's just bad.
Yeah, no, it is an unfortunate name to have for sure. I saw
Yeah.
some poor guy named Dan Schneider, slightly spelled different, getting all kinds of hate on Twitter. I was like, oh man, it's like a
Poor guy.
small time actor.
But he's probably a dickhead. I don't know. His
Nah,
name
he
is
was
Dan
like, I'm not
Schneider.
that Dan Snyder, guys. Come on.
Okay.
Um, but it is. I'm hopeful for not the first time in DC sports. It's interesting to see because the Nationals and the Caps were so good for a
Yeah,
while.
obviously, yeah. The
Um,
Nationals were good for so long, and we're just starting
yeah,
to see this, rebuild. But
but now we're kind of buoying up. Like they're on the downturn, and the Wizards and the Commanders, in my eyes, are on the upturn. So it's kind of
Well, the
interesting
Nationals
seeing
are
the
yeah, the
comparison.
Nationals are weird. They're like kind of on the upturn, but at the same time, it's like that middle of the rebuild where all their good prospects are still
Hmm.
low in the minors. So we'll have to see if they actually.
Plus, I didn't know this. I think this was baseball, right? You can't be in the lottery 2 years in a row. So the
Yeah, very
Nationals got
dumb,
like the 10th pick. What the
very
fuck?
dumb. But
That's so stupid.
I don't really understand it.
I kind of hate the like meta. I don't know what to call it. The like economy of baseball, I guess, where like teams can just pay people as much
Oh
as they
yeah,
want,
I'll go
so
on
the
this
free
rant
agents just
because
go wherever they want, and the small teams just can't get people. So come on.
the Dodgers and the Phillies are just import teams.
Yeah, it's
They
stupid.
just have people that they got from other teams outside of like the Dodgers catcher Will Smith. It's all like free agents. But we could talk about my
Yeah.
friend's a Yankees fan, and I give him shit all the time for just only going after free agents. It's kind of like baseball, and one of the reasons why I like basketball a lot better. But
Yeah.
um,
But
anyway,
before
moving
before we
back to
switch over to
basketball.
another topic, I did find those Denny stats. I just want to throw it in real quick. Since All Star break, he's been averaging 16, 9, and 3 in 13
Okay, so a
games.
lot better.
So, yeah, like not a ton more points per game, but if you're like watching the games, those 18 or those 16 points are super impactful. Like
Oh yeah, he's looked
timely
so much better.
shots, clutch threes, driving when he needs to. So the eye test is to me has really shown that he's taken that leap. And I think it's really only up from here. He's going to have a really productive offseason, I think. He's going to be working with Kuz a lot, I'm sure. He's going to be working with Poole a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
So I'm
surprised
really
if he
excited for
comes
his
out
future.
next year as the best player on the team.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
be
I mean,
surprised.
there's
I
already an
would be
argument.
surprised. I don't know.
I wouldn't be.
Kuzma, I think Kuzma, people tend to just like take him for granted. Um, his game is also kind of aesthetically ugly sometimes, but
We'll
he
talk about
comes
the
out
last game.
there, and I think he's the only reason why we haven't lost every game this year. Like he puts up the points that we need. We need someone to score. He's one of the only people that can do it.
Yeah, we talked
And
about
the
that.
mentor role he's having, I think, is very impactful. That people don't really consider that part of the game.
Yeah, the mentor role is really huge. Before we go into the coaches, because Wes Unseld and Brian Keefe now have the same number of wins after that
Hmm.
3 game win streak.
Hmm.
I want to talk about the last week because I mean the 3 day win streak that was pretty good. They beat Sacramento, which was a great game, 109-102. Then they
Yeah.
went to Toronto. Toronto, they looked like they were trying to lose with the lineups they're throwing out, and then obviously the win against Chicago. We should have
Hmm.
we should have looked at the Sacramento subreddit.
Mm,
That would have been good.
that
But
would have been a good
we'll
one to
we'll
look
do
at.
them in Charlotte next week.
Yeah, because I'm sure
I'm
the
assuming.
Wizards will not win any more games.
Yeah, they got Miami next, then they got Milwaukee, the Lakers, and then Portland. So they could beat Portland, but
Funnily enough, I think Miami might have some trouble with the Wizards because Miami always wants to slow the
they
game
already
down
lost
and
to
kind
them
of
once.
they did. And the Wizards are the fastest pace in the league, which the Heat can kind of transition it. Like especially in the postseason, they're really good at pushing the pace and keeping the transition. But I think that's how they make a lot of teams uncomfortable. Where that's where the Wizards thrive. They want to be constantly moving, pushing at transition.
Yeah, it's their only
Um,
thing that they thrive in.
yeah. So if they can't, I mean, I'm sure they can lock them down, but if they can't, it's gonna be a bit of a tough game for them, I think.
But yeah, a fun week of basketball though for
Hmm.
sure. With March Madness, obviously I paid a lot of attention to March Madness, and then
Hmm.
the Wizards games, their 3 game win streak, largest of the season.
Yep.
But I mean, this Pistons game, I watched a little bit of it. I didn't watch all of it because March Madness was on, but it seemed like Brian Keefe was like going for that tank loss. First of
Hmm.
all, Kuzma and Poole both had absolute stinkers that game. That was the worst game I've seen from them in a while. We have Kyle. What did he say about the Pistons? You don't want to be that team.
Yeah, you don't want to. Yeah,
Five
you
for
don't want to be
22
that
from the
team.
field with 14 or 12 points. Sorry,
Oof.
and then Jordan Poole in the starting lineup, 3 for 15 with 7. So he cannot play in the starting lineup, but we kind of know
No.
that. But the reason I say this was a Brian Keefe tank job is because Marvin Bagley was killing it, and then he took him out and put in Anthony Gill at rim protection, and the Pistons just feasted it inside for the rest of the game. And he kind of closed with, I mean, he closed with Anthony Gill and Johnny Davis. That's kind of all I needed to see to know that um, this was an unserious game for the Wizards, and
Oh
it was a
yeah.
game if they wanted the odds they had to lose. So
Yeah. I was happy with it. This was one of those games where, I mean, you know me, I'm a Wizards sicko. I'm gonna watch most of the games of the year, but I just could not bring myself to watch a March Wizards game against the Pistons. Like it's just like that's some of
There's
the
so many other good
ugliest
games going on
basketball.
too.
Exactly. It's like I'm just gonna go tune into another game. I'm a huge Wizards fan, but I'm a basketball fan at heart, and if you're not gonna put a good product on the floor, I'm not gonna watch it. Which I mean, you could say that about the Wizards all year, but no Bilal kind of definitely made me not really want to watch. I don't really care about Johnny Davis, or I know Kispert's good.
Love Johnny Davis, man.
And at this point, I'm just kind of looking towards the draft, honestly, just hoping,
Yeah,
trying to find some prospects in March Madness.
that's what we all are. So I know I wanted to talk about the coaches a little bit because I
Hmm.
know you like Brian Keefe a lot more, and
Yeah,
he's proved definitely he's going to be better. I still don't think he's going to be here at the end of the season. I think they're going to like look somewhere else, but who knows? So do you want to say anything about that? Because I know.
yeah. I'll just speak my thoughts a little bit about Keefe versus Wes Unseld. This is something that we've talked about a lot personally. Um, I think as you know, I'm a big Brian Keefe guy. I think that coaching really matters a lot less than people tend to think in the NBA, especially in teams like this. If you don't have the talent, you're just not going to win games. But the things that I really had trouble with Wes Unseld, I don't see in Brian Keefe, namely um, timely rotations. I saw a lot of Wes Unseld just kind of keeping guys in, just to keep them in, taking guys out because that's what the rotation said. Keefe seems to like ride the hot hand a lot more, which I really like. And one thing that I texted you while watching a Wizards game is that I love how Brian Keefe is rewarding good play with minutes. A lot of the time under Wes Unseld, you would see like if there was consistent good play, you would see like a small, slow increase in minutes. But especially during this last kind of stretch of the year, that doesn't really matter for us. Brian Keefe is playing Kispert a ton of minutes. He's really showing himself. Jordan Poole, when he had that good game that went to OT, he played like 45 minutes because he was proving that he deserved to be out there. And also one thing that I've really, really been happy to see is that the players are at least trying to play defense under Brian Keefe. Wes
They're
Unseld couldn't
trying.
get them to do anything, and Brian Keefe, like at least they're shuffling around a bit, and like even Poole's at least trying to stay in front of his guy. They're not good,
Pool's
but
still a traffic cone, but
yeah. But we don't look like the Rockets did under Steven Silas. Like that was
yeah.
embarrassing, and we're embarrassing, but it's more because the players are so bad. Like they had talent. Look at Jalen Green now. Look at Sengun. Like he wasn't playing Sengun at all, which
Yeah,
is
who was he
obviously
playing before
stupid.
over Bruno Fernando? I remember
And
Rockets fans were
Christian
really
Wood
mad at that. Christian Wood, yeah, who's
was
not
fucking
getting minutes
stupid.
on the Lakers, by the way.
No,
Or is he
I'm,
injured? I don't know.
I don't. It doesn't matter. He's ass. It doesn't matter if he's injured or not playing. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Just no, go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I know you weren't as high as on Brian Keefe as I was to begin with. Would you say that this 3 game win streak and kind of the habits that they showed during that kind of changed your perspective a bit? Are you kind of in the camp of like they're kind of mostly the same and there's not a huge difference?
A little bit. I definitely think Brian Keefe is a lot better than Unseld.
Hmm.
And two of the things I noticed was, like you said, the hot hand, and I like that. That's not specifically towards young players too. Like you see Rashawn
Yeah,
Holmes getting a lot of minutes because he's
yeah.
been very good for the Wizards.
Hmm.
Um, he's very vocal. Keith, you always see him
Hmm.
yelling, which is something Wes Unseld was not doing. And he's calling a lot more timeouts, and he's actually challenging plays. I mean, we see
Yes.
timeouts like they'll go on like a 10-0 run, and then the other team will hit back with like 4 quick points and timeout. Like
Beautiful.
he's he's really good at doing that. He's playing it like a college team almost, and the team is young
Hmm.
enough where it's like, yeah. I mean, you have an 18-year-old, you have 24, like all these guys could be in college
Yeah.
in
Plus,
another.
it's just. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, no.
I was just gonna say it's what you were specifically talking about with not just rewarding young players. That is one thing I really really like. He seems to be kind of instilling this culture of like, hey, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're playing well and showing that you deserve to be on the floor, I'm gonna play you. And
Yeah,
that makes everybody try more because they want play. Everyone wants playtime. No one wants
yeah.
to be
We've
sitting
seen
on the
that with
bench.
Justin Champagny getting
Hmm.
playtime, Omar Rui getting playtime, Jared Butler, like, and obviously a lot of teams when we get to this point they're going to play some two-way guys, but it just seems like those guys are actually contributing instead of
Yeah.
just even Johnny Davis. Like Johnny
Hmm.
Davis did not deserve minutes at the beginning of the season, and obviously Wes Unseld didn't play him. I think he's actually been deserving his minutes that he's been getting on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, his
Yes.
offense is still complete ass, and it really needs to get better if he wants a job in the NBA in the future. But on the defensive side, he hasn't been bad.
I've turned against Johnny Davis. I'm going to be honest. I think he's going down the Killian Hayes route. I don't think he's going to be around too much longer. It's just like,
There's a swing factor for him, and it's the shooting. If he can, let's see, if he
yeah,
can get his shooting up to a respectable amount. Right now he's shooting 25% from three. That's not
oh god,
respectable. If he can get that up to a respectable amount, maybe like 31, he could probably stay as a bench guy. But
to me
I
the
mean, it was a
shooting,
bad pick.
like of course if he gets shooting together he's going to be good, but to me he never was that player coming into the draft. Um, he was kind of expected to be like hustle defense. He can score a couple
He's kind
layups
of
and
showed
stuff.
that, but
Yeah, but he still struggles to score layups under the basket, and it's
it's
like
the offense
you
being
need to
so
make that
bad.
shot. Yeah, yeah. The offense can't be so bad that it outweighs the defense, that's hard. Like you just need a bare minimum offense if you're looking for good defense. Look at like PJ Tucker now. He plays good defense. He sits in the corner. He shoots threes. That's all he does, and he's
Oh, not
contributing.
anymore, but
That's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's what he did for years,
yeah,
and he found a space in the league.
yeah. So let's move on to the center play
Hmm.
because obviously since trading Gafford, they've had kind of this three-man rotation, this
Hmm.
three-headed monster, as Justin Kutcher would say, probably.
He'd probably say
Um,
something a lot more racist.
yeah, probably. Of Marvin Bagley, Rashawn Holmes, and Eugene Omoruyi. That's kind of been the rotation.
Hmm.
With Vukcevic, he's getting some time, but he's really getting like 2 minutes a game.
Yeah,
He showed a little bit. He scored 6 points that one game. He hit a step back three, mini Wemby, but it's mainly
he's just
those
so
three.
raw.
So
Yeah,
yeah. So who do you think will be? Obviously, I don't think any of these three guys are in the really long-term plans for the
no.
Wizards. But who do you think will be back next year? I mean, obviously Marvin Bagley, he's under contract, but
Hmm.
Rashawn Holmes is 30, but he's played really well. And then Omar Reed's undersized, but again, hustle guy. So what do you think?
Yeah. Well, I believe they also converted they converted Omarui's 2 way or 10 day into a 2 year contract. I think. Um, I don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that happened. So I think he's definitely going to be around. I wouldn't be surprised if we start the season with all three. I don't think we're going to be making very many acquisitions during the offseason. I don't see us going out to get a center. Um, but if you're talking about long term, I definitely think Marvin Bagley is number one for possibility of staying long term. He's only 24. He's super young. Obviously came into the league with Luca, so Luke like he's always being compared to him since he was picked before him, and that's not the player he is. That's not really a fair comparison at this point. But ever since he's come into DC, he's shown that he can contribute. He can play defense. He can grab rebounds. He can put it back if he needs to. He actually has hands under the basket now. He's got a little bit of a bag. He's not completely bagless anymore. Um, so I
He's
definitely
backless
think
off the court. Oh, we were gonna look at their March Madness. We'll do that after March
yeah, we'll
Madness
do
is done.
that. But
He picked
to
Wagner for those who didn't know.
oh god, to me, I think it's kind of reminiscent of the Gafford trade, where Gafford was like seen as this guy who had some potential in Chicago. I mean, Chicago fans were a lot higher on him than Pistons fans were on Bagley, but you could always kind of see like he could contribute, but you never really got that consistency out of him until he came to DC and given a bigger role was really able to flourish. And obviously Bagley's had kind of a similar role as he had in Detroit because they needed him there too. But here, I think he's given the opportunity to just kind of like play for a fresh organization with like a new start. I think the Pistons. I'm not. I don't have any insiders in the league, so I'm not sure. But I can guess that their locker room is not the best place to be in given what happened during the season. It's Detroit. I can't imagine it's a great city to play in. Um, I've never been to Detroit. I don't want to hate on Detroit too much, but just like
Someone loves Detroit.
sixth year on the rebuild and you're still here, like that's pretty depressing. I don't know. And then you come into this fresh organization, new minds, new people, a really young team of people who haven't been in the league too long, super hungry. I think it might be a good situation for him to kind of shake off that narrative that's followed him around his whole career.
That's a really funny comparison to two teams that are just both just in the gutter. But I
Yeah.
understand where you're coming from because the Pistons obviously have been worse for much longer.
Plus, they've had the same GM and everything for so long. Like coming
Oh
into a
man,
team
Troy
that
Weaver,
completely changed
basketball
everything
terrorist.
must be nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna go kind of an opposite route because I
Okay.
think Rashawn Holmes. I don't know what Rashawn Holmes' contract is, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the minimum here or gets a minimum somewhere else. I think
Hmm.
the Wizards are going to go completely new, and I think we're going to
Okay.
see a few bigs coming out of the draft.
True.
If that's Alex Sarr, if that's Donovan Klingman, if that's from UConn, or if it's Zach Edey in the late first out of Purdue. So I think that's what we're going to see. One of those three guys, or it could be someone else I'm missing. I'm not like a draft junkie or anything. Um, that's where I
So
think the direction's going to go, and then we'll also see Vuk getting some more minutes next year. Bagley will probably still be in the rotation. We'll see about Omarui. I'm not quite sure.
So I just looked up Rashawn Holmes' contract details. He's still in that deal he signed with Sacramento, which was that 46 million 4-year deal in 2021 to 22. So he should be around for at least one or two more seasons.
Okay, I think he'll
Um,
be in the rotation for
I
sure.
think so too, and he has a player option for the final season. I don't
He's
think
going to
he's
take
gonna
that.
deny that because it's 11 million. I don't think he's gonna get that anywhere else.
No.
So I think he probably will still be around next season for sure. And
Uh,
I've liked him for sure. It's just and Omaru is kind of a similar age, so to me that's the big thing is that Bagley's so much younger and they're kind of similar ages. I can see them prioritizing Bagley first. But I think I wouldn't be mad if all three of them stayed around. I like them all.
yeah. Did I say Holmes was going to stay in the rotation? I think he's not going to stay in the
Oh, I
rotation.
see.
Sorry.
I see. Yeah,
if
yeah, yeah,
if they draft a big, I think it's going to be that big Marvin Bagley, and then we'll see Vuk
yeah.
more
Yeah,
too.
that's a good point. I totally forgot about
Omarui,
Luke.
he's obviously signed a multi-year deal. He's not going to play as a center if he gets into the games. It'll be in another
I think so
position.
too. Yeah, I agree.
So before I want to get to the subreddit comments, and then we'll kind of look at the off season a little bit
Hmm.
more with like Tyus Jones, the point guard position. I have Anthony Gill on here for some reason, and obviously Kuzma. Uh, let's talk about the Caps and the Wizards. They're staying in DC.
Yeah,
Uh,
Ted listened to my rant
they heard
last
you.
week.
They
Thank
heard you.
God. I'm very, very happy about this. Obviously, Ted's trying to spin it now as like, oh, sad this didn't work out, but I'm super excited. Cap One's a great place for the city. Blah blah blah. Um, I never understood all these comparisons. People are talking about like, oh, there's so much crime. You're gonna get carjacked. It's like you're right across from an art museum. What are you talking about? This isn't like
Also, like,
it's DC. It's not.
you can say
You're
that
not.
about pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, have you been to a Wizards game? There's thousands of people around. Like, nothing's gonna happen. The last time we went to a Wizards game, the only thing that happened was some guy preached to us about how we were praying to false idols and need to run
That's very
basketball for
annoying.
Jesus
They need to
Christ.
do something about that.
That is super annoying. But it's like, I don't have too much of a problem with it. I don't really give a shit. It's DC. You're gonna have people saying shit to you no matter where you are. It's a city. It's how it is. Um, and to me, this was like Ted, obviously, this would have been amazing for his business. He was gonna build a whole like complex of all his businesses and shit. Um, but I just like really think it's gonna be so good for the city to have the Wizards stay there, even against their will. I don't really care if it's voluntary or not. And Capital One's a fine stadium. They're gonna do some renovations. It doesn't really need too many renovations. It's a big venue for concerts, Caps, Wizards, whatever. So obviously, I'm super happy about this news. It never made sense to me why they were going to move in the first place. It just seemed like a billionaire trying to make more money off of this, Virginia. Um, and I'd even go so far as to say I need the Commanders back in DC. I know I saw
Adam
something where it's
Peters.
weird that they can't move to DC right now, even though the owners and the mayor want them to, because technically the federal government owns the stadium or something, and they won't let them. Like,
Interesting.
there's some weird shit that makes it like harder to kind of get back over there. But it's DC Commanders. They should not be playing at Landover, Maryland. Like, come
Yeah, I've lived in Maryland my whole life. I don't know where that is.
on. Yeah, I know where it is. It's not close.
um, I was gonna say my favorite part about this obviously is that Ted gets kind of screwed over,
Hmm.
but also and getting a little political here that the Virginia governor gets screwed over
Yes.
because he's all about running running his state like a business, and obviously you can't do that. For people
No.
who don't know, state running states and running businesses completely different. And then he gets
Yeah.
screwed over because he didn't include someone into the deal that should have been included or that wanted to be included. And
And I want
you can't just like boss people around as the
no.
governor. You have to there's all this legislation you have to go through,
And I want
and
to
he didn't
commend the
know that.
Virginia legislature for having the people's interests in mind. The people were paying for the stadium. Ted was not paying for the stadium.
Yeah,
They were claiming that they were going to create 30,000 new jobs. What the fuck? No, that's not possible.
yeah,
They were just lying blatantly. It's an area where nobody in Potomac Yard is going out to get a stadium job. That's just not. It's not the reality. Nobody needs those types of jobs. That's not the type of area it is. In
Yeah,
DC, especially Gallery Place, you're gonna have people whose those jobs will, that's how they live. That's their entire livelihood is working these kind of crappy stadium jobs that should be getting paid more. Um, and I get that it kind of makes the Wizards look bad. I'm not going to name names, but I know someone inside of the Wizards organization that said that this really caused problems for them with business partners because they were telling them that this was a done deal and that it was going to happen. And now they have to backtrack and kind of pull out and kind of move things around, and it makes them look disorganized and amateurish, which
and what
this
else
was.
is new?
That's completely what that's been the Wizards for the past 50 years. Come on. So I don't think it's going to do any damage to the brand long term, and obviously as a person that grew up around DC, I want to see the Wizards stay in DC. So good news
Yeah,
for me all around.
good news for everyone.
Hmm.
I had something I was gonna say and I completely forgot. So if it comes back to me, I'll just say it completely off topic.
Sounds good.
Somewhere more down the line. You want to read some subreddit comments?
Let's
This is gonna be a good segment.
let's do
So
it. So we're
we
gonna
went
cover.
through. Well,
Yeah, sorry, you go
well, this is my segment. I came up with
ahead.
this.
You
So
did, you did.
obviously the Wizards have had some good wins over the season, all 14 of them, and my favorite pastime is after a Wizards win going into the subreddit of the team they beat and reading the comments. Some people are really really funny. Um, so we'll kind of take a look at that right now. And I don't want like there's no hate to these guys. I just think it's funny. I'm not like trying to troll them or whatever. I don't know how
Yeah,
much
no,
fun
it's
is
not like trying to
that.
expose these people for having shitty takes or like doing anything like that. I just think it's funny to see reactions to a tanking team. That's the one bright spot of the Wizards to me is seeing people melt down after their team loses to the Wizards. Just because, like, obviously that's bad news. If you are trying to be a serious team and you're losing to the Wizards, that's not a game you should be losing. So it's justifiably getting upset. But I just think it's funny, especially in the case of like a team like the Bulls, where that's where we were 2 years ago. And I remember
Yeah.
losing to some really crappy teams and being like, "Why the fuck don't we just blow this shit up?" So it's cathartic to see it coming from the other side after we made that decision.
Yeah, so we'll be taking a look at two games, and then I want to take a look at two more games next week. This week we'll look at the Miami Heat win, which was obviously one of the best wins of the season, and then the Chicago Bulls win. Um, so I'll start with the Heat. I'll put it up on the screen.
Cool.
I'll
Yeah,
use my
and
editing chops.
before we start, real quick, the we independently looked for these, so the other person doesn't know 100% of what one person has, so you're going to see a little bit of genuine reactions from the other person here.
So this is the first comment. This is the top comment. It says, "Just imagine losing to the 10-53 Kuzma-led Wizards." I love that comment
You
because
gotta
it's so
love
true.
that. And that's the benefit of having a number one option that was such a meme for so
Yeah.
long. um, I love that. I love just seeing it like matter of factly put out who like our
It's so
leader is.
funny.
It's just so funny. Like I know Kuzma's our leader. I love Kuzma, but no team with Kyle Kuzma as their number one option is seriously doing anything.
It's so unserious. All right, you want to go with the Bulls? We'll go back.
Yeah, I'll go ahead with my first one. This one's simple. Just sums up the kind of general experience of the thread. As a lot of people probably saw from Wizards game threads over the years, it's just a lot of doom and gloom about their own team. So I try to specifically look for Wizards related comments. First one just sums everything up great. We lost to the fucking Wizards. LMAO. It's just
It's
that's
so
just
good.
the mentality of that fan base is just like, man, really? This team? We lose to this team? It's so funny.
This is more Heat related, but the guy said, "I will never understand why this team has to hit rock bottom to find themselves every year," which I thought was so good because the
That's
Wizards
really
is rock
funny.
bottom.
Yep, the Wizards are rock bottom, and that's so true for like just the Heat fan experience. I'm sure last year's a roller coaster. You go in, you almost lose your first play-in game, and then you make the finals. And then I
I
saw
love
Heat
the
fans
Heat.
being so cocky all offseason. We're gonna get Dame. Fuck you guys. We're winning the finals. And now you're in the play-in again. It's just oh my god. It must be
And
such a
it
roller
also
coaster.
went from Dame, from not getting Dame to like, oh, this package wasn't enough for Dame, and it was like Tyler Hero and Jaime Jaquez going off, and now it's back to, oh man, I really wish we had Dame.
Yep.
So it was
First was
really
like, we don't
funny.
need Beal. We're gonna get Dame. Oh, we don't need Dame anyway. We just need the finals. Terry Rozier is gonna bring us to the finals again. It's like, oh.
Jaime Jaquez, who's actually
um. So this next one from the Bulls is just like emblematic of kind of that fan base right now. This guy said this game fucked my brain up permanently, maybe. And God, I remember watching some Wizards game where I think this game ended with DeMar trying to do some hero ball bullshit, and that's exactly how every Wizards game used to end with Beal. And you're just watching it, and you're like, it's so stupid. You're just like, I don't understand how this is the play. Like you draw up a play, and it's Beal ISO. Like what the fuck are you doing?
Beal ISO's crazy. The Scott Brooks special.
Oh God, I hate Scott Brooks so much. Whatever we
Brooks
said about
secret
Wes
plays.
Unseld and Keith, they're a million times better than Scott Brooks could ever be.
It's so funny seeing the Blazers with Scott Brooks with the same struggles.
3-guard lineups.
They really drafted 3 guards.
That's true.
I know people remember the Ish Smith, Raul Neto, Russell Westbrook lineup. So oh my god,
legendary.
pulling my hair out. All right, next one. I'm gonna do 2 because I have 9.
Yeah, you have more.
We lost to a team that's trying to lose. What the fuck are we doing, Miami? And then fucking embarrassing, worst loss of the season without a doubt. Which, yeah, true.
That's very true. I mean, it's just I feel like a lot of these comments are kind of are gonna hit on a lot of the same beats of just like general despair and like this team of all teams. You have another one, right?
That was the 2.
Oh, those are the 2. Sorry. So this one is my personal favorite of all the ones I have. I love this one. This guy said, worst loss of the season easily. Jordan Poole is the biggest bum in the league. Imagine if they actually made him dribble by the rules. It's like,
that was just so salty. It's so good.
It's so salty, and it's just like, what do you mean dribble by the rules? Have you watched a Memphis game with Jaw? Like, nobody
Also, Poole gets called for a carry all the time.
Yeah, he's the only player that gets called for carries.
All right, I'll do 2 also. This one's good. You're fighting for playoff seeding and you lose at home to the fucking worst team in the NBA. Fuck that. And no one seems to give a shit. What a fucking joke. I love when people like just kind of assume that no one cares about this. Like, people obviously care. The Heat organization is not going in like, oh well, we lost to the Wizards. No, Eric Spoelstra's like, he's yelling at them in the locker room.
I get that mentality though, because I would be so frustrated if I was a Heat team. You have the best coach in the league, bar none. You have Jimmy Butler, who's always going to be able to motivate anyone. You're getting production out of like bums,
Allegedly.
And it seems like I know the Heat owner is notoriously stingy, and they're just not like. I heard a lot of the Dame trade, like he didn't even want it to happen because he would have to pay the luxury tax. And I mean, I'm sure he's fine making finals runs and never winning every year and getting a ton of attendance money and all that stuff. Like. That's to me one of the disappointing parts about the NBA and professional sports in general.
Thing because they were definitely in the luxury tax when they had the Heatles.
Yeah, I think the Heatles was more like we have the best player ever wanting to join our team for almost free. You just kind of have to take that opportunity, and they've shown that they're willing to go all in. To me, that maybe shows that maybe like the Heat owner doesn't have faith in the Jimmy Bam combo or whatever, but it's clear with their actions that they don't really want to like go all in on anything and really spend. And from an owner perspective, I'm sure he's making a shit ton of money off of these deep playoff runs every year. So I wouldn't really. I mean, I would because I'm a basketball person, but if I was a businessman, I wouldn't give a shit about winning either.
Yeah. We'll see if they make another deep run. My next one is you can't use the Mickey Mouse hairstyle and lose to the Wizards, which is really good because Jimmy Butler. I'll put a picture. Jimmy Butler had the Mickey Mouse hair. I guess it's exactly as described, actually.
Yeah, that's a pretty self-explanatory.
He had the 2 years. That was such a good. Drew Gooden and Chris Miller were like roasting him the whole game for that, which also seemed kind of disingenuous because it wasn't really even that bad.
No, yeah. I love Jimmy Butler's hairstyle antics. It's harmless. It's fun. He's just like, especially the ones where ESPN has to show his like emo haircut every time. It's so good. So I've got one that's kind of like a combo. I'm gonna read the first one and then a response to another comment. I don't care about the middle comment, so I'm gonna skip that. This guy says, "This is the kind of game that destroys whatever little hope we had for this season. Just a backbreaker, man. You can't lose to the Wizards. You just can't. Embarrassing." And then someone was basically like, "Oh, I didn't have hope for the season," and he clarified, "When I say hope, I mean some sort of progress for the team. It's almost like whenever they show you something, they revert right back, similar to last year, just stuck. And I like this one a lot because this one really like this could have been a Wizards comment a couple years ago. It's
It
just
probably
like
wasn't what exactly what it's called.
probably it's just like I know that feel of watching this team on the treadmill, just like oh man, they're going a little further. Oh, there they go, doing the same old habits that they said that they were going to break. Um,
I
and
love
to me, this
you
is
just
like
can't lose to them. You just can't.
yeah, I love that one. It's just like despair. He had a sad emoji in the middle there.
Oh,
Um,
poor guy.
but it's like to me, it's like at least the Wizards aren't here anymore. We're making progress. Something's happening. Our players are getting better. We're not just like stuck on the treadmill watching young teams get all these good players like over and over again. So at least we have some hope.
There's some. I'll finish up mine. I have two like real salty ones.
Okay.
Which, if you know the Miami Heat fan base, again, I love the Miami Heat. They're actually my second team, but they're hella salty.
I love to
This
hate
one,
them, just like the Sixers, you know. But I don't hate them as much as I do the Sixers.
oh my god, fuck the Sixers.
Fuck the Sixers.
These guys said, "Yeah, we just sold to bums." Unbelievable. And then the next one is so salty. This guy just said Kispert celebrating like he just won Finals MVP.
I love the people that are like blank celebrating like blank. Like I saw one that was like, "Wow, this team's celebrating like they won the World Series. This is game 1 out of 162 people." And this guy was like, "I think it's actually good that they're showing emotion when they win a baseball game. Like the emotion's why I love sports.
Yeah, what
I
are they gonna
love
do?
the Pat
Just,
Bev
like-
playing, getting up on the
Oh my
announcer's
God,
table,
I'm putting
throwing
that
the
shit
jersey
up.
in the crowd. That shit was so good. I
That
want
was
to
my
see more.
that was my favorite moment from that season
Me
because
too.
Chuck after was just like, "We are the champions."
That's what I want to see. I honestly like. I love Pat Bev and Dylan Brooks and all those guys bringing the rivalries and the emotions. Like, this is a professional sport. It's supposed to be entertainment. You don't have to be all business and like, oh, I'm locked in all the time. It's like it's supposed to be fun. Have a little
Yeah.
fun out there.
Dylan
That's
Brooks
also
is
why I
staring
like
at
the Masses.
LeBron.
Yeah, that's the funniest thing. I love the Dylan Brooks villain stare before the game. It's so funny. I love
Bro's
how
not
Jamal
even
Murray
warming
got
up.
into it and they just stared at each other for like 10 minutes. That was so
Yeah.
funny. So I have two left. I'll go ahead and just finish it up
Yeah,
too.
those are my last ones.
This guy has a really long one. He said, "We got cooked by Holmes, Kispert, and Poole. If you're still holding out on hope, here's your sign. Bulls actually suck. It's kind of a stretch to say they're a mid-team. They're just bad. Front office needs to do something this offseason or move on to run the Hornets or some shit. GG, Bulls Nation. Hang in there."
I like the subtle jab at the Hornets.
Me too. I love how the Hornets, like, even though they're better than the Wizards and the Pistons, they're still the low-hanging fruit to just hate on because they've been so bad for so long. At least the Wizards had a little bit of a run with the Wall.
And they sign all these criminals.
But to me, this is the comment. This is like the holy grail of tanking loss comments, just because, like, he said it. We got cooked by Holmes, Kispert, and Poole. Like, come on, like
Yeah,
that's
that was
just
me when the
embarrassing.
Wizards lost to Trey Jemison.
Yep. Or Kelly Olynyk, even. Like, we
Yeah,
lost to
well,
Kelly Olynyk.
Oh my God! Yeah, don't get
No,
Wizards
we're
fans
not
started
gonna-
on Kelly
We're
Olynyk.
not going to start on that.
Let's not open up that
how
can of
everyone feels
worms.
about Kelly Olynyk. So I'm just going to go ahead and move to my last one. This is a good, just final statement. Last time, I asked if we could play the Wizards every day. I withdraw that statement. Wizards putting fear into opponents' hearts. Let's go, baby.
The Heat are shaking in their boots now that they gotta play the Wizards next.
But it was super interesting looking through that whole Bulls thread because it was just like eerily similar to every Wizards comment. Fire the coach, trade, like all the good players, everything. It's good to move on from that. At least the Wizards
Yeah.
sub is a little bit more positive recently.
All right, we're gonna talk about teams that, no, not teams that should blow it up. When teams should blow it up. So obviously the Wizards, they blew it up too late. We know that. The Bulls are on their way to blowing it up too late. But some teams blow it up way too early. And I'm going to talk about the Utah Jazz in this situation because Danny Ainge has done a lot of good things for the Celtics, and we'll see. Maybe he's onto something, and I'm just like wrong. But right now they had Donovan Mitchell, they had Rudy Gobert, they had good role players around them. They were the 1 seed one year. They, obviously they blew that 3-1 lead in the first round, and then they lost the Clippers in the or Dallas. They lost Dallas in the second round when they're Dallas. Was it Dallas?
I don't remember that year. What year was that?
I think they lost. They lost to Dallas in the first round without Luka, and they lost
Yes.
to LA in the second round. I think the Jazz blew it up too early. It usually takes teams a few years to kind of like get rolling, get like connected with each other. Mitchell was drafted in what, 2017?
Yeah.
They gave him like 4 or 5 years to like get ready with Gobert, and that's not including like the first year, which they were never going to win because obviously they were both like new to each other.
Yeah.
And you have a team that was like in the top half of the conference every year, and you blow it up, and then you're not even bad. You're not even like at the bottom. You're just in the middle, fighting for a play-in spot, and then like pulling out and stop fighting for a play-in spot for whatever reason. They're not going to get a top pick, and it just doesn't make sense. And then you draft Taylor Hendricks, who didn't play for like a majority of the season. Like, I feel like when you're blowing up, you're looking for players like Donovan Mitchell. You're looking for players like Rudy Gobert. Yep. And you look at where they're at now. Donovan Mitchell killing it. He's one of like the top players on a team in Cleveland. That's what, a top 3 seed, and then top 3, top 4 seed. And then you look at Rudy Gobert, like same thing, top 3 seed in Minnesota. I mean, it obviously it's like championship or bust for a lot of teams, but I feel like the Jazz, if you just kept with that core and continued to build around them, eventually you would have had success with it. Eventually, Donovan Mitchell, I think, and I'm really high on Donovan Mitchell, but I think he would have eventually gotten you to a conference finals, to an NBA finals, so if you continued to build around them.
Yeah. And I want to just do a little bit of just random speculating, but I've always thought that the only reason the Jazz blew up the rebuild or blew up that core is because Minnesota reached out and Danny Ainge just could not resist. I'm a Boston fan as well. I grew up in New England, so I've got a bit of the Boston in me. My family's huge Celtics fans. And seeing him on the Celtics, it was kind of the similar thing where he was addicted to these like high risk, low reward picks. He loved getting as many chances as he could to find like those IT type of guys. I think he drafted Champagne, he drafted all these guys that, were too small for the league, didn't really last too long. And he's just like in love with assets. And when it works, it works. Like, look at the Nets trade. And I think the Rudy Gobert trade has potential. Just to me, that they made that team too good. I think they underestimated Rudy Gobert a bit. So now those picks are going to be not as maybe valuable as they wanted them to be. And I understand why you would take a package like that. It's one of the biggest trade packages ever. But seeing Rudy Gobert like this, I will admit I was a big Rudy Gobert hater back in the day. I didn't think he could get the offense together, but
it's because he was French for all those people,
and because he's French mostly. Yeah, that's a part of it. Only Frenchman I like is Bilal Koulibaly. Let's go, baby. But he's really adapted a lot more than I thought he was able to in Minnesota, and it's interesting to see what he's capable of when a team doesn't just build the defense around him, but allows him to thrive in the offense as well. Because I always felt that he was a bit restricted in Utah, and part of that is because their only ball handlers, Donovan Mitchell, and he is a bit of an ISO player, and I just don't think I don't think they were able to figure it out in the time they were together, but I don't think that means they couldn't have ever figured it out. So I'm with you. I don't really understand what they're doing. I think if they were going to tank, they should have just committed. I think they got kind of in love with the Markkanen trade last year and how his big steps he's made, and now he's untouchable. It's like, that's not what I would want to see out of a team that's claiming on rebuilding.
That's the biggest thing for me, is you trade Donovan Mitchell and Markkanen's great, but you trade him for an objectively worse player.
Yeah.
and obviously draft capital. I guess we'll see in multiple years how this goes, but if I was a Jazz fan, I'd be pretty upset with where the team is now. And going back to the Gobert trade, obviously, that was too good to offer. But if you look at what they got back Walker Kessler, who put up similar defensive numbers, not to Gobert, but this guy could be a Gobert replacement. So why are you trading Donovan Mitchell? Pick one. Are you bottoming out, or are you trying to compete? Because I'm just not sure what the Jazz are doing, and it's like they're trying to bottom out, but they're way too good. But then, like you said, Markkanen's untouchable, so what are we doing?
Exactly. And that's the thing that really pissed me off if I was a Jazz fan. It's not just they're bad or they're mid or what. It's just like pick a direction. Like what's happening here? What's the plan? Like maybe they really thought Sexton would work out more than he has been or something like that. And they do have some
But
bright
even
spots
then,
like
it's just
Keontae
keep
George.
Donovan Mitchell.
Exactly. It's like just keep Donovan Mitchell. I don't really get it. Um, but
They did get Keontae George through the Rudy Gobert trade, so
that's true.
that's pretty big. That was their selection with the Timberwolves trade.
And he's been great. And maybe they turn things around. But then what's your goal? Are you just going to return to being a like low playoff seed or like top playoff seed? To me, it's like if the Grizzlies decided they were going to trade Ja and JJJ and Bam.
Yeah,
It's like you guys have been at the top every year, but you just haven't broken through because you're young. So why are you trading all these guys? They traded Donovan Mitchell when he was like 27. Like, what are you?
He was
doing?
younger than that, I think. He was like 25.
Yeah.
How old is he right now?
I think he might be 27 right now. I mean, that might be why I thought of that number. But he was young. That's the point.
He is
he wasn't even
27
close
right
to his
now.
prime.
So he was
Yeah,
what,
he was
25?
25. Yeah, that's like you enter your prime at 28 usually. Like
Yeah, so
and he's been one of the best players in the league. He's got good relationships with other players, which, to be honest, that's the only way anyone's willing to go to Utah. Nobody wants to live in Utah.
yeah. No offense.
But that's enough for me talking about the Jazz. I don't want to spend too much time on them just because they're so mid and just no position.
It just annoys me. It'd be
too.
like if the Knicks like didn't get out of the second round, and then like, or like we need to trade Brunson and Randall. It's like, no, it's just you can eventually just try to build around those guys, and eventually, if you're in a top four situation and you're making the playoffs every year, I feel like that's a success through your organization.
It's almost like trading away
Especially
three
if
Hall
you're
of
top
Famers
four.
for Mikal Bridges.
Especially if you're top four. Yeah, yeah.
But I wanted to
What was
talk about a
that?
team. I just said it's like trading away three Hall of Famers to build around Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about a team in the East. Everyone's thinking the Bulls. I don't even want to talk about the Bulls. It's so obvious. I want to talk about a team that to me has been even more egregious than the Bulls in their recent years. The Raptors. Ever since the
Raptors finally did blow it up, though.
They finally did blow it up. I'll give them that. But to me, it's like I don't see a world where this team was. If you were gonna blow it up, I don't understand why you wouldn't just blow it up earlier rather than later. Again, that's what people are gonna be saying about the Wizards, and I get that. But they traded like the Pirtle trade is the big thing that confused me because they weren't doing anything that year at all, and they decided to send out multiple picks for.
I think just one, but still, it was a first round pick.
It was a first round pick
draft.
Yeah, and that was a very very valuable draft. And he, I don't know what it is. They always have this obsession with all these tall guys, and that New York trade was legitimately very good for them. I'll give him that. R.J. Barrett's Canadian. He loves being at home. I'm sure quickly has been great for them. But I just watched them for years and years and years. Make 8 seed, barely make the play in, and I was like, what's happening here? At least the Bulls
after Kawhi.
After Kawhi. I want to clarify that. I think they should have seen how things go in 2020 and then blown it up. The Kawhi years were perfect. That was like amazing roster construction. They obviously had a little bit of luck to win the finals, but I love that team. I love Kawhi. I love that shot against Philly, of course.
My favorite shot other than the John Wall shot.
Yes. But I was just mad at the Raptors for not blowing it up. I think they picked the wrong time to blow it up, which why I thought it was relevant for when should they. I don't think there's a team in the league right now that would really gain too much from blowing it up. Most teams are either in a transition period or
besides the
are
Bulls.
already good. Yeah, besides the Bulls, but I don't really think the Bulls are going to gain that much from blowing it up. What's Zach?
At this point, it's
what's
like
DeRozan going to get you? What's Vooch going to get you? Nothing
well,
really.
we're looking at a DeRozan extension, which I think
Mm-hmm.
could end up being pretty disastrous for the Bulls if they do that. I get it, you don't want to lose him for nothing, but I mean, look at what happened to the Wizards.
Yeah.
And I actually think the Wizards got a good return for Beal with what,
all things considered, I agree, yeah. But I guess the Bulls are very egregious. I can't let them off the hook. I did forget that the owner just said that they're not blowing it up and are going to compete. Or no, it wasn't the owner. I think
the GM.
The GM said that because the owner said you guys are good to blow it up. Go ahead. We need something new. And the GM went, no. I think we've got something here. And it's like, are you
35 and 39?
Are you hoping Lonzo's coming back? He's not. I hope he.
Or
comes
if
back,
he is, it's not going to be the same.
No, it's not going to be the same at all. I liked Lonzo a lot. I hope he comes back. of course, wish nothing but the best for him, but I think it's kind of silly to hinge your hopes on that. This team hasn't shown you that they're even competitive in the regular season. So what's the goal? Again, I would say the goal. The owner's fine with getting seats in the door because they I think they're number one in attendance this year still, but he was okay with blowing it up. So what's the holdup here? I really don't understand. It's too late for them to blow it up now, and they're still waiting. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. And then I want to go to teams that shouldn't blow it up.
Okay.
And I don't think this team is going to blow it up anyway. But in case they have a bad playoffs, or next year they have a bad playoffs, I still think they have something against the Sixers.
Yeah.
If you have Embiid, you don't blow it up.
No.
Like, I'm sorry, he's the MVP. He was the MVP last year for a reason. If he didn't get injured, he would have been the MVP this year.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't care that his playoff record's not great. You keep that team together, especially with Maxey, especially with Embiid. They might go after Paul George. They're probably not going to get him, but Embiid alone can win you a championship. You just have to build the right team around him. Something the Sixers have failed to do for the past 10 years. But
yeah, I mean that's my
you know,
big problem with the Sixers. Beyond just like it's fun to hate them and their fans suck. It's a lot of just like pure incompetence coming from that front office. It starts at the top and it goes all the way down to the bottom. Their medical staff has ruined several careers at this point. Fultz has never looked the same since he played in Philly. Joel Embiid is rumored to be coming back before the end of the regular season after getting surgery for his meniscus, which to me, meniscus, which to me is just stupid.
That's a season ender.
We had a friend in high school that had two meniscus injuries, and he was out for a long time. And that's obviously it's a regular person, not access to the same medical facilities as an NBA player. But those are one of the injuries that if you play on that and make it worse, that could be career ending. Like you said, there's no upside. I don't think. I think you just got to rate the season off as a loss as much as it hurts.
Yeah, especially as the 8th seed. Like, what best case scenario? What, you go against the Bucks in the first round? I don't know.
Yeah, right. Like, I don't think they are winning that game with an injured Joel Embiid or a Joel Embiid that hasn't played in a few months. Even if he's 100% healthy, which no way he is. And the same thing goes for Cat. I don't think Cat should come back this year.
Yeah, Cat's a little bit different because the Timberwolves actually do have a chance. I don't think he should come back either. I agree, but it's a little bit of a different situation.
I agree. So for the team that I think shouldn't blow it up, I think this is a little tough because there's, like I said, I don't view a lot of the teams right now as like going to blow it up. But with all the narratives the past couple days, or not even the past couple days, just a few months, I don't think the Hawks should make too many roster changes. Obviously, the team's bad. Right now, they've been missing Trae Young a fair amount this year.
Do you mean like roster changes to get worse and bottom out? Because they should make roster changes, but I agree with you. I think it should be to get better.
I think they should be careful and not to make too many roster changes. To me, the obvious thing is either DeJounte or Trae have to go. It hurts because you just traded for them, but I don't think. I mean, they haven't shown that they can play together. Maybe it's just hating because I haven't been paying attention to the Hawks too much, but it seems like whenever one goes out, the other one elevates their game and takes a big step. And at this point, DeJounte has been pretty good. I think you can get a decent return from him, but I don't want them to go too crazy and start just like completely blowing it up to retool 100% around Trae. I think they have a lot of good pieces. I'm pretty high on Bogdanovich. I like Sadiq Bey a lot. I think Kobe Buffkin's going to be a really, really solid player for them. But they sometimes make trades that I don't really understand why. And they've been shopping like DeAndre Hunter around for a few years, so they might just decide to trade him for some reason. And I think that they can't panic too much. This is the first year with Quinn Snyder. He's a great coach. They've been playing a lot better recently, which I think, like I said, is a symptom of not having to share the ball with both Trae and DeJounte.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on this, and mainly because they made a conference finals appearance, 3 years ago? Obviously 3 years ago, but we've seen Trae can do it. He can lead this team. Trae's defense has gotten a lot better, which doesn't say a lot, but it has gotten a lot better.
Especially with Quinn Snyder.
Yeah, and I think really the big move you have to do is Capella probably has to go. I'm sure there are teams, who might get him. You start Onyeka Okongwu and then see if he can make that jump, because if he can make that jump, it elevates your team a lot. I predicted the Hawks would be in the top 6 at the beginning of the season. I'm very surprised they're this bad.
Me too.
They made the playoffs last year. I mean, you got to give it at least another year with Quinn Snyder and Trey Young, and even
I think so
Murray.
too.
I think if
Okay,
at the trade deadline next year they're in a funk, then okay, let's start talking about it. But
that's
I
fair.
don't know. I think they should go into this. I mean, you have DeAndre Hunter, who's a decent 3-and-D guy. I don't know what his 3-point percentage is right now. Sadiq Bey,
Hmm.
Okongwu, Jalen Johnson, who's been amazing. Like you have pieces, you just kind of have to find the right fit. And maybe there's maybe there's one guy they're missing, and they haven't figured out who that is. But they'll eventually. Maybe it's like a Karis LeVert or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and just to give a bit of perspective, DeAndre Hunter is currently averaging just around 16 points on 40% 3-point shooting, just about exactly 40% in 28 minutes. So that's like
Yeah,
pretty much
that's
exactly
really
what
good.
you want from a guy like that.
Yeah,
So I don't understand why they're always so like desperate to trade these guys that they've had around for a while. Because like I think they kind of fall in that trap of like, oh, we need to shake things up because like it's getting stale. We need some fresh whatever. And sometimes
but
it's
they
like
tried
that's
that
not
and
what
it
you
didn't
need.
work.
Yeah, they tried
Yeah,
that. It didn't work. It's sometimes you just need consistency. I think that's what a lot of teams are learning from the Denver Nuggets is that like sometimes you just got to let your players develop that chemistry, get that consistency together and learn how to play with each other. And I think that's more advantageous than just panicking and pulling the button and being like, we
yeah.
need to
Imagine if
blow
the
it up
Nuggets
now.
blew it
Yeah.
up
Imagine if they blow it up at
before.
that one year where they were both injured or whatever. It's like, come on.
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, we're kind of coming up on the hour part. So I don't. Do you want to talk about sports gambling, or do you want to do least favorite Wizards players?
Yeah, I just want to cap it off talking about sports gambling.
Okay.
This is a topic that I'm very passionate about personally, just from like a societal standpoint. Like I'm not a gambler at all, so I don't see that perspective of it. I can kind of see the fun of it. I play fantasy every year with my friends. I do March Madness brackets every year with my friends. But to me, that's more of like the communal aspect of like talking shit to each other, fucking around, like seeing how if you can beat them or not. And I think sports gambling especially has reached such a predatory stage of to me it seems like trying to capture these high school kids of like hey you can make it you can get rich off of sports gambling and this can be like your job like a lot of these
I've definitely seen
podcasters
a
are
lot of
acting
it.
like
Yeah.
oh like I am here because I gamble and like all this stuff. Bill Simmons is constantly talking about DraftKings and stuff. He even was like had a very soft take on the Jonte Porter thing because he's sponsored by gambling sites. He can't condemn these gambling sites because they pay him millions of dollars to go up there and defend them. And to me, that's just dangerous. It's gambling is an addiction. It's proven that it triggers the same part of your brain that drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and everything else does because you get that dopamine rush and it's always like oh this could be the one, this could be the one, this could be it. But the
Yeah.
thing to me that just shows how transparent it is, if you win enough on these sites, they will limit your bets. They don't want you making money off them. They want to make money off you. The saying, the house always wins, exists for a reason. And I think this is going to bring up a whole generation of young people that don't know how to deal with gambling. They think it's normal. They think everyone does it. Even my coworker, super normal guy, loves baseball. He's constantly coming over to me like, "Hey man, look at this parlay, $1 to win $1 million," like all this stuff. And it's like, dude, you're never gonna win that. And he's always
Yeah.
like, "Ooh, this looks like it could hit." And I'm looking at it, and it's like, Dante Exum's not hitting 7 threes this game. Like, what are you talking about? And it's like
Yeah.
I understand like if you go into it like, oh, I'm gonna lose this money. I'm not gonna win. This is just for fun. This makes my enjoyment of the game higher. Whatever. That's fine. You can do that, especially an adult. You can make your own decisions. You're fully grown. Um, but a lot of basketball content is marketed towards teenagers because that's who watches a lot of basketball. That's who has time to watch these many games, and that's who's playing basketball. So I think it's just really dangerous. I think we're going to see the ramifications of it in society. Um, Looking at a country like Australia, their gambling habits run so deep that gas stations have slot machines. Like every gas station in the entire country has a slot machine. You can. That's a generalization I shouldn't make because I haven't been there or anything. But I've heard that that's a thing. It's widespread. They have slot machines in airports. They have slot machines everywhere. Casinos are everywhere. And to me, that's not the culture that I want to adopt into our society because it's dangerous. It's like you don't see people getting up there and advertising cigarettes in sporting events. I don't think you're allowed to do that for good reason. This is you. It's like to me if someone came up and was like, "Yeah, well, there's a lot of side effects to crack, but it makes you do your job way faster." It's like
Yeah. Exactly.
it's just super dangerous. We're embracing it too much. This Jonte Porter thing's just the start. I think we're going to see some crazy gambling scandals coming out because it's just so accessible. It's so easy. the Shohei Ohtani thing is like
Yeah, I was gonna point out that like we're already at the point where we're getting these scandals.
yeah.
Like Jonte Porter, this guy's obviously going to be made an example of by the
Hmm.
league. I want to talk about Kenny Beecham, who's another NBA guy.
Hmm.
He does, and on his podcast, it's sponsored by gambling sites.
Hmm.
And one of the reasons I respect him is he's still kind of laid into Jonte Porter and laid
Yes.
into gambling as a whole, which is what I really liked.
Yes.
Obviously, he still does it, but when you're sponsored,
I mean, to me, that just shows how systemic it's becoming and how
yeah,
ingrained into the basketball culture it's becoming. Kenny Beecham, I watch his stuff as well. He's very vocal about, like, hey, I gamble sometimes, but be careful, gamble responsibly. But then he, like, it felt a little gross to me. That's part of the reason why I don't love his podcast. I really like his personality. I really like what he has to say about the game. But to hear someone so vocal about being responsible and taking your own, like, I don't know how to call it, just trying to not put too much of yourself into it. To have someone like that sit there and be like, well, the lines for tonight are this, my personal picks are this, it's like you're feeding into that. Like, I get it, you
yeah.
need to make money, it's your job. I'm completely fine with that. It's just
But
like
I understand what you're
if
saying.
it that just shows how deep it's becoming. Even someone that's so vocal about something like this being kind of a bad thing is being reached out to by these gambling sites to promote their services.
Yeah, and you see it on like TNT, Shaq, Charles Barkley. They
Hmm.
all do their gambling segments. But yeah, I Jonte Porter's interesting because obviously if the NBA finds him guilty, which it's looking like they might, um, I wouldn't be surprised if he's completely suspended from the league for
Me
multiple
neither.
years.
Yeah.
The Shohei Ohtani thing though is extremely interesting because obviously right now it does seem like the interpreter is being thrown under the bus, or if he's not being thrown under the bus, then Shohei's obviously innocent.
Yeah.
Um, but the thing that's murky about that is Shohei Ohtani is the best player in baseball,
Yes.
and for something to happen to the best player in baseball for gambling, like I'm interested to see how the MLB reacts to that.
Yeah, me too.
Especially because the MLB doesn't have a good track record on reacting to these types of
No,
things. If
they
you think
don't.
about the Astros,
Yeah.
it'd be like if LeBron James suddenly like had like a gambling uh, thing, like what Adam Silver would do. So I'm super interested to see how that kind of sorts out.
Yeah. No, me too. Me too. I definitely fall into the camp of like definitely not Shohei gambling. I'm 100% certain that Shohei
Yeah, I don't think
Ohtani
it was him
not
either.
putting bets through his interpreter.
I don't think it was him either.
But I can understand wanting to help out your childhood friend who got himself into a bad spot.
Yeah.
And I could see it being one of those situations where it's like, look, man, this is the last time. I'm sick of this. I'm going to help you out of this hole, and then it better not happen again. And then it unfortunately got lashed onto by national media. Because I know it only came out because there was a investigation into the bookie that they were booking with. And then they just came across Shohei Ohtani's payments and were like, whoa, Shohei Ohtani? And like leaked it
Yeah.
or broke it, which is like, that's their job. That's what they should be doing. But I think this is going to be a murky situation. I don't think Shohei's going to face any investigation. I think they're going to completely
No, I don't
throw the
think he will.
translator under the bus for better or for worse. And I
Even
think they're
if
just going to try to make
like
it go away.
Shohei, it's definitely possible that he's completely innocent, and
Yeah.
the interpreter should be thrown under the
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's also, we just don't know. And I don't, this is one of those things I think we might hear about in like 10, 20 years and like fully get everything, but I don't think we're going to know what really happened for a long time, if ever.
Yeah. I think that's where we should end. We don't have to do the least favorite players. We're at almost an hour, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So that'll be our show. Next week, obviously we got Wizards Heat, Wizards Bucks, Wizards Lakers, and Wizards Blazers. March Madness is going on. I can't promise I'll be watching all those games.
Yeah.
Especially like the Bucks game, which they'll probably lose by 40. But we'll see. I mean, I'm guessing. They've been playing a lot better. I'm guessing they're going to go 1-3
Okay.
during this stretch.
Okay. I'm going to guess
think
0-4 because
Yeah.
I'm just going to be pessimistic about the end of the year. But thanks for
Hey,
tuning
they
in.
finished against the Celtics. They could actually win that game when the Celtics rest everyone.
That's true. You saw Joe Mazzulla talk about how he's just kind of trying things out for the end of the season. But thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next episode.
Yeah, like and subscribe.